Hey everyone, it's Joric. Welcome back. Thank you so much for watching the channel. Today I wanted to talk about Portugal and the safety that comes with moving and living in Portugal. Now, whether you're going to go just as a tourist and you're going to spend a week or two there, or you're going to live there part-time throughout the year, or if you're going to become a full-time resident and make a move to Portugal, so often the headlines are not all that accurate. There's a narrative about, some place is a great place to stay, some place is a great place to retire, and then you start peeling back the onion of that, and you're going, oh, well, it's just a marketing campaign to get somebody to start moving to another country or to try to inject some financial gain and some tax dollars into an emerging country or some place that's coming out of conflict, you name it. And for probably a little over a decade now, 10 to 15 years, Portugal has been looked at, even through their financial crisis in 2012. It's an affordable country. It is, outside of Lisbon. Lisbon is not affordable, but the rest of the country, I feel, is pretty affordable, comparatively speaking, relative to other places in Europe and around the world. It is very safe and peaceful and safe. We could split hairs over euphemisms, and there are certain places within Lisbon, there might be certain places within the country that might have more violence or might have more criminal activity than other places. But coming from the US and now living back in the US, they're the worst spot in Lisbon, or the worst area, because I've done a video a few years ago about it, and it is a dicey area. It's still, 10 times more safe. I wouldn't walk there and be there at night necessarily, but it's still safer than areas where I grew up, or we're back in Phoenix, Arizona again. Where I'm going with that is 5 years there, my wife never felt uncomfortable. Let's say we were leaving a photo performance, or we were leaving a pub and it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and we're either getting an Uber or we're walking home, or she's walking home. And she may be walking home with somebody, or she might be walking home alone, or just walking around at night getting groceries or something. Never felt uncomfortable, like somebody's over her shoulder, somebody's watching her, something bad is going to happen. And we've been in a number of cities traveling throughout the US, throughout the world, and there are some where you kind of take a street and you're going, let's avoid this, let's kind of, maybe we need to get back into the metro station and go to the next stop and see what happens. But you really don't have that. And what's interesting is, if you comment below, if you've lived in Portugal and you've experienced this, so many people that live there, you almost let your guard down. And especially if you're coming from the US, you go there and you don't have that hair in the back of your head, or for me, no hair in my head, thinking about, okay, is there somebody that's going to jump out of a car or come out of this alleyway? It's rare. It's not zero, but you can feel much calmer when you're living there, because it's just something that you don't think about in your day-to-day life, because you don't have to. Oh, there's going to be violence today in this town or on this street. And I will say, I met several former military people from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, and the United States. Probably a mix of 20 to 25 people in total who had spent either time or their whole career in the military. And so where I'm going with that is, some of them have PTSD, and when there's a loud noise, or a car backfires, or if there's let's say a demonstration going on, or just watching the news can get you really amped up and upset. They moved out of their respective countries and moved to Portugal. Several of them have been living in the Algarve. One couple in Lisbon, a couple that are in the Silver Coast, so Peniche area. And in being able to meet them and speak with them at different times, the interesting thing is the people that were former military and felt really, you know, uneasy about the home country that they lived in and served for to help protect. They moved to Portugal, and some of that, not all, but some of the anxiety and stress that just comes from whether it be reliving the memories or just day-to-day life, the stresses out there, all of them have said that living in Portugal has just felt so much better because there's a peacefulness or there's a calmness that they won't turn on the news and there's bad news happening. And if so, it's generally not related to Portugal. It's related to their home countries that something's going on as opposed to Portugal. So if you are thinking about moving to Portugal, you know, from a safety perspective, it does live up to the hype of it's safe. It doesn't mean that there's not violence. There's violence in every country. There's violence. There's, I hate to say it, there's murders, there's rapes, there's major crime that happens in Portugal, but it's at a much more minimal scale to probably many of the other countries or even major cities you may be moving from. So that hopefully gives you some peace of mind, because we really were thinking about Portugal and 10 years ago starting to have discussions, and you know the safety thing kept being brought up, and we usually want to read behind that, get past the headlines and go, okay, so there's a narrative here. Is that just marketing or is that the reality? And going on a few trips, doing some scouting trips and going there, different part, whether it be Porto, Lisbon, the Algarve, the islands, Azores, Madeira, even small towns along the Spanish border, it didn't matter. I mean, there was no worry or concern about safety. I mean, even to the point of, if we left our car unlocked, I can't say that somebody wouldn't go into it. Probably in Lisbon, I'd be worried about that, Porto. But in small towns, if we left our car unlocked, we didn't come back the next morning and have the car rifled through. It was still the way it was left. So I would say that the Portuguese, the people that live there, crime as a way of life or looking to, do harm to others, it doesn't seem to be, it's not part of their DNA to do that. There's some argument as to whether immigrants that move, if they're causing some of the issues and whatnot, that may or may not be true. I don't know that. But when you're going for a tourist trip, you're going to think about moving there. You got a lot of things to consider and a lot of stresses and anxiety along the way. But one of the things you don't have to stress about is it going to be safe for us to go there? I think you are not going to be worried or have to worry about safety. Consider other things, what trips you're going to take, where you're going to live, how much you're going to spend, what your budget looks like, but don't have to worry about your safety. So I hope from someone that's lived there 5 years can relay to you. No reason to give you any baloney on that, and I'm not a part of the tourism board. If you watch my channel, I rail on Portugal as much as I praise it. So, but I'm hopeful if you're considering Portugal, you realize it's a super safe place and all of the headlines match the reality. As always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy your travels.